Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to another Creator Corner session. We're going to be working on an accordion style sketchbook utilizing some cardstock, some sketch paper, glue, and a cereal box. So with that, let's go over the materials you'll need and then we'll go ahead and get started. With our workshop for today, you will need the supplies right in front of you or me. So we have some sketch paper. If you don't necessarily want to use sketch paper, you can use different other types of paper, watercolor, the coarse paper as fiber one. It's entirely up to you, but for today's workshop, we'll be utilizing some premium 8.5 by 11 size sketch paper. I also do have some cardstock that we're going to use to reinforce the book itself, so that way the paper is not flopping about. And then you'll need a cereal box, so that way we can work on the outside portion of the book itself. We have scissors, we have hot glue and regular glue, a mechanical pencil, so that way we can measure everything out. And this is what we'll be working on today. So I have my book nearly complete. We'll be finishing this in the workshop, and then I'll show you how to get started, and then make a beautiful cover too as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Before we get started on the workshop, I forgot to mention previously that we do have some supply kits available for you. In your supply kits, you'll receive the instructions, as well as the sketch paper, the cardstock, and the cereal box. So with that, you're going to get all of your paper. I thought that the sketchbook that we purchased was perforated edges, but it's not. So you're going to have the extra pieces of paper. I don't know what it's called, honestly. But with your pair of scissors, you can go ahead and cut off the excess amount of paper. You'll just go ahead and toss that. But with your flush paper, you can go ahead and fold it in half. So I already folded this other piece of paper in half, so that way it's nice and hot dog style long ways. Once you have that done, you'll get your pair of scissors and carefully cut it down the middle. So that way you should have 2 equal halves. If it's a little bit off, that's totally fine. You want it as close to even as possible. So we're going to have multiple pages. Depending on the size of the paper that you're working with, it's also going to dictate the size of your overall book. But with the long pieces, go ahead and fold it in half. So with your folded halves, the next thing you have to do is get your cardstock, divide it in half, then divide it in half, so that way you have 4 equal parts. And again, to reiterate, the parts don't have to be exactly equal. They can be slightly off, but try to get them as equal as possible. So I have 4 pieces here. You'll go ahead and get your glue stick. What I like to do is where the folded half is, try to align it to the cardstock edges. And you will have a piece of cardstock left over, which is completely fine. What I like to do is go in the corners of the cardstock, run down, and make lines on both sides. Then just use your fingers to smooth out any air bubbles that may have been in there. So the paper should only be glued on one side of your paper. So this is the glued side, this is the other side, and then your cardstock is underneath. And then you're just going to go ahead and continue this process. If you have an old credit card or something that's hard and plastic, this makes taking out the air pockets a lot easier. And then when you take a look at it, if you have any extra cardstock on the sides, go ahead and cut that off. And there we have it. So that is going to be one page of our cardstock, and you go ahead and repeat this process until you have enough of the cardstock with your sketchbook paper. So when you have your two pieces, if you put them in the same direction, it's going to eventually make a circle, so that's not what we want with our sketchbook. What you want to do is to put it in opposite directions, so that way it folds back and forth like an accordion. Then go ahead and do the same process that we've done. Add some glue to your cardstock. And I like to double check to make sure that the paper, both pages, are flush with each other. Because if they're not, then you're going to have to take it apart and try to fix it. This process does take a while, so don't expect to finish in one day. I've been working on this sketchbook for the past few days over the weekend. So you're going to keep doing this process back and forth until you get your desired length. So I believe this is 3 pages, this is 2 pages, and like I said, you want to go back and forth, so that way you don't end up with a giant circle. We're almost done. This is kind of my near completed one. So between every single page on this book, there is a piece of cardstock, again to give it some stability. At the very ends, this is what we're going to work on today. We're going to finish up this book here, and then we'll go ahead and be done with our workshop. If you would like to, you're more than welcome to decorate it with whatever you would like for the front cover. So first things first, with your cover, you're going to go ahead and get your cereal box. Grab the end piece of your paper. I went ahead and left a little bit of extra cereal box on all sides of my cover, so that way I can remeasure with my piece of paper to make sure that it fits. With cereal boxes, I thought it would be sturdy enough to be a cover, but then I started messing around with it when I was making the other one, and it felt too thin. So thankfully you have an entire cereal box to do this, but what you could do, and what I did, is I went ahead and measured out a second piece. Once you have your two pieces, what I did was I glued both sides like so, and I used hot glue for this. Again, kind of using the same method we've used, and that's just using your fingers to push down the glue, kind of smooth it out. And once you have that secure, you can go ahead and cut off the excess amount of cereal box, and then we'll go ahead and measure out what we have in fabric. Now that we have our cereal box cover nice, ready to go, the next part of this is to go ahead and get the fabric you're working with. Again, I found this coffee one when I went to go buy fabric, and I really love coffee, so I thought I'd purchase this one. Go ahead and measure out. If you do go over your lines a bit, that is totally fine, because what we're going to do is we're going to fold over the edges of your fabric, so that way you can't really tell it's there. I did make the mistake, because I wanted to open it sideways, I glued the fabric up and down rather than left to right, so it actually opens this way, which in future I will fix that. Let's go ahead and check to make sure that the cardboard fits our paper, and it does, which is perfect. So the next part is the trickiest but also the easiest part, and that's just centering your cardboard onto your fabric, and then using your hot glue gun, we're going to glue down the fabric. And I don't know if you can tell, but when I'm gluing down the fabric, I'm pushing down the middle first and working my way towards the edge. You could get fancy and cut off the edges to make it flush with one another. I'm just folding it over to make some nice squares. Then you just want to make sure that it's nice and flush. If it's not, it's fine. If this is your first attempt, then it's totally, like I said, it's totally fine. I'm going to add a little bit of glue here and there to make sure that the fabric stays in place. Doesn't move around, doesn't come undone. Hopefully, you press down hard enough that the glue seeps through the fabric and glues down the top flap of your corners. If it doesn't, you'll just have to lift up the fabric and then just glue it in between the two fabrics so that way it stays down. If you worked with fabric before, or have done book covers, if you have any suggestions on how I can improve on this, feel free to put them in the comments down below. I'm just kind of winging it. So this is what I was talking about. So I didn't push down hard enough. There is a little tiny flap on the inside. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of glue. Alright everyone, so I managed to hot glue the fabric down so that way it's nice and sturdy and it's secure. The next part is to keep the book closed. We're going to add this elastic band to it. So before we do that, we're just going to go ahead and place the finished book cover, the cover that we did. Grab the elastic band and we're going to go ahead and measure out how much we need, and because we measured it without stretching it, we're going to stretch it out a tad bit, see how long it is, and maybe about a ½ inch go inwards. So that way when we glue it into place, it will stretch out. I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 of these strips. So I glued down my elastic bands so it's gonna keep our sketchbook in place when we're not using it. And I'm gonna make sure that my covers are in the same direction. It bugs me, I'm not sure how much it bugs you, when covers are in opposite directions. So I'm gonna keep it in the same direction. Fold it over. And here comes the more trickier part. We're gonna glue down this extra piece of paper to the cover itself. And I say that it's the trickiest because you want to make sure that it is flush on all sides. Make sure that your cover is in place. Kind of the same process how we've made the inserts, the insides of our pages. We're just gonna fold over the page. Okay everyone, so we are done with our sketchbook. We want to be very careful and just fold over the elastic bands that we have in place. And I can't believe it worked. But we have our elastic bands in place. It is holding our book nice and put together. And then all you have to do is just take it off. Try to be very careful because I see some of it's coming off. But that's why we have more glue. And then when you're using it, all you have to do is just unwind it. Thank you for joining me on today's Creative Corner workshop. We worked on our accordion sketchbook. So I'm really excited to use it now that it's done. If you are interested, we do have some supply kits available. That's going to contain sketchbook paper, some cardstock, and a cereal box. You will need some glue, some scissors, and other materials if you refer back to earlier in the video. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and other much more. If you go to the homepage of our website, scroll down, you'll see all of our social medias posted. You can click on the logo and it'll direct you to our correct pages or channels. Be sure to give us a like. If you've done this at home, be sure to tag us in your social media posts if you do decide to post it. And if you have any suggestions for future content, make sure you go ahead and leave it in the comments down below. My name is Josh. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.